Hey guys, Tony Rowe here, back with my usual customary 15 plus 5 game against eldeeb. 2147. No country. Looks like we're going to have a reverse Grünfeld for like the 48th time on my channel, I think. Six, knight f6, e5. Again, I've mentioned this, I think, in other videos, but white can just castle there, but I'm just going to toss out c4. Call castle. Again, I could play knight c3. We can be flexible here. So I think the best move is bishop e6, bishop c5. It looks suspicious. This is an odd square for the bishop. Okay, well, let's just go knight c3. I thought about queen c2 for a second, just x-raying the bishop and threatening c takes d5. That might have actually been the better move. Also allowing rook to d1, but you know. The problem with this move is it kind of... I feel like at some point black might really regret having this instead of this. I don't even know if I have to do anything really particularly special. Bishop g5, and again I'm threatening c takes d5. He almost has to go e4, which is not typically a move you want to play. Exploit this bishop in any obvious way. e4, like queen a4, is kind of the normal response. And I think black can castle there because queen takes c6, rook c8, and then let's say queen a4, and then there's d takes c4, because now there d takes e4, there's no rook on a8 anymore. But if e4, queen a4 castles, I think maybe rook a to d1 is good, maybe rook f to d1 is good. With the bishop on c5, I think, and with bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, remember the pawn's on e4, a lot of times it's better to use the a rook even though it looks weird. Like the a rook should go to maybe the c file and the f rook should go to d1, but rook a to d1 removes the rook from the long diagonal, and it also keeps f2 defended. I had a 45 plus 45 league game that reached a position similar to this, except the bishop was on e7. And my opponent played e4, I played queen a4, he castled, and I played rook a to d1, and I won a pretty nice technical game. I think moving the dark square bishop actually in, well, let's say bishop e6, knight c3, and then like bishop e7. I think the tempo used on bishop e7 is not well spent actually. In my experience, when I prepared for that 45 plus 45 league game, I thought it was actually pretty hard to equalize if you spend the move on bishop e7, and I kind of think bishop c5 must be worse somehow, but the reason being is I think you actually have to use that tempo to clear the rook off the a8 diagonal, put it on the c file. I think black has better chances of equalizing if he does that first. Usually I think in those positions there's like bishop e6, knight to c3, rook c8, and then c takes d5, c takes d5, queen a4 check, queen d7, queen takes d7, and then king takes d7. Kind of a thematic Grunfeld move, taking with the king on d7 and bringing your king sort of into the center. White can go rook to d1, something like that, and the position's complicated. We can take a look at that after the game. Refresh my memory. So he's just chucking it, I think. C takes d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5. Bishop takes d5, bishop f6. No? So the other question is c takes d5, c takes d5, which way do I capture? Because there's bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop f6. Let's say queen takes, and then knight d5, and I have my knight on d5 versus this bishop on c5. Instead, c takes d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, bishop f6, queen takes f6, bishop takes d5. It's opposite colored bishops. My bishop is, I hit his rook on a8. He goes rook a to d8. I have to like go e4 or something. I don't know. And maybe in that case, I'm sort of justifying this bishop on c5, and it's going to be hard to convert my extra pawn with opposite colored bishops. So I'm thinking about c takes d5, c takes d5, and then what? Well, okay, I'm going to take here, because I think maybe even he can get away with d takes c4 in some of these positions once he's castled. And is there anything better? Like, I'm thinking about flicking in a move first, like rook a to c1. If that's better than just immediately taking on d5. I don't know. I'm not going to waste a ton of time thinking about it. These are the kind of decisions during a game that end up killing me. Like, I waste time thinking between bishop takes d5, which is obviously good, and rook a to c1, which is probably good. And I can't decide which one is which, and then before you know it, like, I have 3 minutes left, and I could have just played bishop takes d5 and been much better, and instead I toiled over rook a to c1. Maybe in like a long game, 40 and 2 SD1, I would think about whether or not rook a to c1 first was better. I quickly decided that rook a to c1, bishop d4 was maybe not worth my time looking at, really. So after this, I have to decide between taking with the queen, hitting the bishop, or just taking with the knight. Again, I'm just going to take with the knight. Taking with the queen is actually interesting. Try to go knight. I mean, first of all, it gains a tempo on the bishop, and second of all, maybe knight e4 instead of knight d5 is interesting. The only thing I hesitate about with knight d5, obviously this is an insane square for my knight, and because he's only left with the dark squared bishop, he can't really assail this knight. That's part of the point of bishop takes d5 instead of knight takes, is I want to reach this piece in balance instead of having a light squared bishop here instead. But I feel like in the future I'm going to have to play e4, and then this dark squared bishop is really quite good posted on this diagonal once I can't go e3 anymore. So I'm going to try and maybe think of some way that after he moves his queen somewhere that I could avoid going e4 perhaps. I'd really like to play e3, for instance, and blunt this bishop and somehow keep this knight on d5, but maybe I'm just being greedy. I'm kind of inviting him after e4 to go like f5 with, some nasty stuff. Well, sort of. So I could go back to c3. That's an idea. I really want to go like queen b3, rook f to d1, but queen b3, rook a to b8 I think is just annoying. d3 maybe? Queen d3 with the idea of going rook f to d1, releasing my queen from the defense of this knight, or rook a to d1 perhaps. d3, rook f d8. Let's say rook a to d1. Okay. I'll try it. Actually up on time. I just jinxed it. But regardless, hallelujah. It's a 2017 miracle. Okay, rook a to d8. Is there any reason why I shouldn't play rook a to d1? I think I'm pretty much pot committed now. Bishop d4 is maybe moderately annoying. What would I do in that case? Hard to say. Okay. Getting out of maybe check stuff, and he wants to go f5 without running into, like, I don't know, some stuff. Queen c4, queen b3, etc. One idea is queen f5. Doesn't really threaten anything, it just stops f5. And if he goes g6, then I go queen f6 check, takes. Should be still quite a bit better there. Another idea is just to go e3. But I do like the idea of stopping f5. Queen f5, bishop d4, though. Maybe I have knight c3. Queen 6. Yeah. Queen f5, bishop d4. I need to take my knight. Pretty much have to move it. Knight c3, queen b6 was what I was looking at. Of course, threatening queen takes b2. Three. C takes. That looks kind of dicey. That weak pawn, but there's also bishop takes. There's also queen b2 maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure about any of that. I don't know. Not at all sure what the best move is here. A3 even is well worth looking into. You know what? Let's go A3. If he goes F5, I'll go B4. He pretty much has to go bishop B6, and then maybe, I don't know, play something like queen to B5. Just try to take off a bunch of stuff with knight takes B6. Queen takes. Queen takes, A takes. Yeah, he can play that, but I thought maybe still here. Hmm. Pinning my knight differently. Instead of this one, I got this one. But I'm hitting his bishop. Now I thought I could go here. Hitting his A5 pawn. Does have some trouble with the stability of this bishop. I don't think I have any amazing ways to take advantage of that yet. But I'm starting to think that maybe my knight needs to come back to C3 to head to E4 and to maybe allow rook D5 or queen D7, rook D7 even. Seems like for the time being, excuse me, that knight C3 might be a better home. Yep. I kind of wanted him to play rook fd8 a little bit, because now on knight c3 I actually have the threat of rook takes, and then queen c5, which I didn't have the move earlier. Again, I'm up a pawn still that I won straight out of the opening, as I have in many many games at all time controls in the Reversed Grünfeld, and queen takes a5 is a threat, and of course these two for free will eventually decide the game. So black needs to almost look for tricks here. Oh man, there's almost bishop takes a3, but rook takes d8 check takes and then takes, and he doesn't have this attack on my c3 knight anymore. And of course takes, trying to switch up the move order a little bit. Bishop takes a3, b takes a3, rook takes c3, allows rook d8, and he gets mated. So this tactic, at least for the moment, is not working. And there's a good chance it's just never going to work, because I'm going to take here, or I'm going to go here, and even maybe here, but doubtful. That tactic will cease to be something I have to worry about. At the moment, I'm pretty happy that my pawn is still on e3 and not e4. That was like a big decision early in the game, and right now these two pawns together kind of team up nicely to make this bishop not particularly great. Okay, I don't see any reason to not take with the rook, so I'm going to take that quickly. So from a technical standpoint, I have to be relatively close to winning, I would guess, you know, not winning outright or anything, but I've got to be getting there. C5 almost working. Queen C5, rook C5, rook D8. He must go queen G8 and then takes and he's up in exchange. So that doesn't work yet. But it is something to keep in mind. So now do I take here, which threatens this check, or do I simply go queen D7? Queen D7 essentially guarantees the queen trade. I guess he can go queen A6 if he wants to not trade queens. Doesn't seem advisable. For instance, queen F5, plus minus. But and again, queen D7, queen takes D7, rook takes D7, bishop A3, B takes A3. Rook C3 doesn't work because of rook D8 mate. But do I want to trade queens when I can just snag a second pawn? So queen A5, F4. There's rook D8 check. He pretty much is forced to go bishop F8. Rook takes. Queen takes. And then queen E5 is probably winning for me. I think I'm going to take this. It's a little bit greedier, but I also think it's more principled. It might just be better. You know, 2 pawns is 2 pawns, and I don't necessarily see anything obviously wrong with it. He doesn't. If black had some dynamic options here, I'd be a little bit more worried. But you know, his best move might be like a Luft move, or like, because F4 doesn't work, he doesn't really have anything super terrifying. And in that case, if black doesn't have any really active options, I'd rather just take the second pawn. I mean, for instance, bishop b6 comes to mind, stopping this rook d8 idea, but then I just go queen back to b5, and queen d7 is already on the cards again. I can also just go bishop b6, queen d5, or bishop b6, queen a8 with this pin, and also keeping an eye on this rook. All of these options are pretty tempting. They're all probably very reasonable. Dog, he's gone. I don't know where he is. Yeah, so he makes Luft. Not the most exciting option here for black. I think I am going to take this moment to trade off the rooks. I think that limits black's counterplay pretty severely. Yeah. Takes king h7 is most likely. I think I'll go queen d5. Just to force back his queen. He probably must play queen e7. Yeah. Now maybe just b4. Get these dudes going. Starting to look pretty dire for black. Bishop b6. I think queen c6 will be pretty irritating. d6. b5 comes to mind. Or do I go something like queen c6, intending to d5? If b5, see, my position is overwhelming enough now that I think I have to start looking at forced wins, like b5, bishop a3, b6. Just say bishop d6, b7. Not sure that's clear yet. I shouldn't think for this long. I don't know. I'm not sure that this is all that great of a move. Yeah. It is moderately tempting to try and put my pawn on h5. Yeah, that's stupid. Who the hell am I kidding here? Okay, I'm just gonna ask him what he's. I'm gonna just move my king and ask him what he's gonna do here. If f4, I'm just gonna go e4. I think. Doesn't really have any bishop moves. I want to see if he's gonna weaken himself in some way before I do anything. It's hard to find like actually active moves here, so I want to see if he'll do something dumb. I really want to be able to play a4 or like b5 without losing a pawn, but a4 hangs a pawn and. Okay, I'll play. Should I have played that? Hard to say. Don't know. See, the problem for black now is f4. I can take it, and he doesn't really want to take back because queen h5 is check. e4, of course, loses the f5 pawn outright. g6 is pretty weakening. Give this check. Ooh. Go knight d5 now. Whoops. Hmm. At some point, I gotta get these guys going. I just don't know how to do it. All right. He'll of course take now. Oh, I hung a3. What the hell am I doing? guess I can pretend like it's a trap because I get to trade queens. But that endgame doesn't seem very good. I'm bad. Queen a3, you dummy. This is the downside to being in time trouble. It's just like sometimes with these little things, just completely blank on them. Oy vey. I can almost pretend it was on purpose. Like takes, takes, takes. Queen d4, threatening queen h8 mate. King h7. Oh, I should have checked here first. Yeah, but... yeah, I should have done that. For sure. Ugh. Damn. That would have been much better. Because check here, he must take, and then I can take back with... Oh, shit, it's my turn. Yeah. Alright, well... In the interest of not losing, I'm going to play this way, but it's not good. Alright. The problem is it's just too easy for him to play g5. Doesn't want to do that. F6 maybe still holds a draw, perhaps. Don't know. Maybe not. King f6, knight c6 moves the bishop. b7, g5, b8 takes, takes. G takes, but then he doesn't really have any way to wrangle up my h pawn. Is that even a win? I don't know. Two h pawns and a knight versus and a king versus a king. I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, you know, if chess is a fair game, it should be a win. But I don't know. Maybe there's some trick, you know. Like I can't get close to his pawn or something. Actually, I highly doubt that. I think it should be. You know, I guess the only way that'd be a draw is if there was some stalemate trick, where I couldn't mate him and he could like put his king on h8. That's I haven't heard of that one though. So whoops, just hit my pop filter. Matter. Doubt it. I think my knight's ending up on b8 no matter what. So bishop d6, b7, king d7, b8 takes. Okay, I don't know. I have to go for this. 7 takes. I guess I get out. Huh. Run. Run. Keep going. Faster. Heading for f4, after which the game ends. This was a weird one because I think I bungled it. I mean, I definitely bungled it when I allowed queen a3. That was incredibly stupid. That was very dense. But I think my opponent played really bad after this. King f3, not allow him in these places. I don't know if you guys have watched my other videos and you know my stance on this. I find playing out these endgames incredibly insulting. But, you know, to each his own, I suppose. I mean, he can't take. Okay. He wants to take. Get this thing the hell out of the way. Excuse me, I have some kind of scratchy throat, upper respiratory infection nonsense that I'm dealing with here. I'm doing this in the laziest possible way. Look. It's trapped. Amazing. Okay. Good game, eldeeb. No. Let us analyze. No. Load the study. Again, real sad at the green. The green button is gone. But I get it. Okay, so Reverse Exchange Grünfeld. This is something I played quite a few times. I'm sure you guys are sick of it by now. You can see, practically speaking, regardless of whatever the theoretical evaluation is, black scores really bad. Oh, this is not the Masters database, but I'm sure it's similar. Yeah, black doesn't score great in this line in general. And I think bishop c5 especially. Man, bishop c5 novelty. Oh, I lament this every time the novelty's gone. God, that kills me inside. Just not a good square for the bishop, I think. I've studied this position a bit, and I remember thinking that black sort of had to do something like this. I also remember that this was kind of a Vallejo pawn special. He had played in 1 or 2 games, and I remember Jan Gustafsson saying that this line, especially with this 13 bishop c5, was something that Vallejo pawn showed him. And the idea is that if you just take everything, which you can do, then after king e6 and you move the rook, it's really hard to keep the pawn because black's king is just very well placed for the endgame. f5 comes, and of course there's this problem with rook c2, which is irritating. And after rook f to d8, I think black has pretty easy compensation. I remember thinking that knight a4 was probably the move, but I don't remember why I thought that, or what white should do after this. I thought it had something to do with f4, and you play bishop e3 or something. Was it here? Maybe. The idea, of course, is that if you go f4, then bishop e3, and my bishop is coming to d4, a7 is loose. I'm kind of blockading on the dark squares. But I don't know. I'd have to look into this. This line happens so rarely. You have to know something about the reverse Grünfeld theory to really go bishop e6 and rook a to c8. I think most people don't do that, but I think that's the best line. I had a Team 45 game go bishop e7 here instead, I believe, and I went bishop g5, and he was sort of forced to go e4. Hold on. Let's see. Oh. Maybe it was in this position. And I think I went queen a4, and he castled. Aha! There it is. And I went rook a to d1. The idea being that if I go rook f to d1, and he just makes some move, I think I was specifically worried about queen b6 after thinking about it for a while. The problem is if I try and win the pawn here, like so, he gets to take here, and e2 is hanging, and my rook on a1 is hanging. I'm going to win e4. You can't protect it, but because I have some other hanging stuff, it's a little bit less clear. And so I played rook a to d1. And after queen b6, I was able to play this same line, except after queen b2, my rook wasn't hanging, and I was just able to go e3. And then take on e4 next move when I was up a pawn. So, again, another Reversed Grünfeld game that I was able to sort of draw on, and again another Reversed Grünfeld game where Black's pawns just fell apart in the center after like one inaccuracy. And another interesting thing to note is that this was another game where I was playing against a dark square bishop in this sort of similar structure, and I put the pawn on e3 again. And actually, if you check this game out, if I remember, I'll link to it in the video. Having this pawn on e3 was incredibly important because in this specific game, I won e4, and I was able to combine being up a pawn, of course, with pressure against f7, which I was able to get through putting like a rook on d7 and a bishop on d5, while he was not able to do the same because pressure on f2 is quite a bit harder to work up with my pawn on e3, whereas his, being all the way on e4, left this diagonal wide open. So I was able to sort of attack a7, f7, and use my extra pawn at the same time to win another pawn and then start to go to work on his weak king side. Because once this falls, he starts having light squared problems, and opposite colored bishops are notoriously tricky to defend if one side gains the initiative because you simply can't defend as well on that color complex. So just a small diversion. I think bishop c5 is probably not very good. Thought about this move also. Threatening c takes d5 and also just getting ready to go rook d1. Worth thinking about, but knight c3 is obvious and good. And it's just too easy to fall into positions like this in the reverse Grünfeld. I really do not recommend you picking up this line. Specifically this reverse exchange position like here. Unless you really know what you're doing, like for instance Gustafsson with this whole line prepared with bishop c5, all that, I really do not recommend you playing this line because it's hard to handle for Black, and one mistake can really be fatal. And I've said this in other videos, so yeah. And here there was kind of this critical moment, I think, where I have to choose how to take the pawn. Also, rook a to c1 here. I don't know if this is any good. I was a little bit worried about bishop d4 when he gets to take here. And probably I am still a little bit better, but it's like a little bit less clear, I think. So maybe that's dubious. And I'm glad I just decided on the straightforward line. And all of this is pretty much forced, and I have to decide whether or not to go queen takes or knight takes. But it is worth just illustrating my point here that I just find this position less clear because of the opposite colored bishops. So, oops, I wanted yellow. And the pressure on the f2 pawn. I'm no doubt white is better, and no doubt white is pushing for the win, but I guess I can go e3 in this case too. No doubt white is pushing, but it's obviously, at least to me, it's quite a bit harder than going bishop takes and going into this position when you kind of have this knight on d5 versus this bishop on c5. So yeah, I mean that's sort of the. This is probably just a mistake. Actually, it's hard to not lose a pawn after this move. Yeah, and this is a position where I had a hard time figuring out what move to play. Knight c3 is actually pretty interesting, isn't it? Same idea as when I went knight c3 before, that obviously I really want to trade queens and for him to take here. And my knight is actually, because I'm reluctant to play e4, my knight is actually a little bit vulnerable on d5. Which makes me think, like, why not just take here immediately? I guess bishop d4 again. I have to go rook a to c1, I think, and yeah, I mean, maybe this is irritating, but even this, like, just like, let's say b3 is still is better for white, no doubt. But knight takes d5 is more natural. I do think I needed to find some kind of improvement here. Like the problem is queen b3, which I really want to play, allows rook a to b8. It's no good. Yeah, I mean, there isn't much else. I can go e4, but I'm a little bit dubious on this decision. Even just like here right away. I mean, is queen b3, king h8 really that big of a deal? Yeah, I mean, I guess I can take. Ooh. Okay, that's slick. I did not see that at all. So maybe e4 is possible. What if he just goes king h8? Rook a to c1. 5. Knight e3. Going to this, huh? I would not expect this to be as good for white as it is. I guess you have to see rook d7 with rook c7 coming. Actually, rook a7 is a threat also, isn't it? Yeah, I mean that's tricky. So I guess e4 is e4 is worth considering, but the thing about e4 is that you, for the rest of the game, you have to contend with like f5 ideas, whereas if I just don't play e4, then it's harder to get that in. And like I said, these two pawns together sort of corral this bishop's scope. Ooh. Ooh. Yeah. Interference. Stupid. So instead of queen c4, queen b5. What's the difference? Ah, now the queen is not pinned, so I have knight c7. Dirty jerk. Okay. Anywho, I got basically the same position. And I was able to pretty much simplify down into just, I mean, a very clean win. There's nothing really here. Though this was trickier than I thought it was going to be, actually, because it's after b4, bishop d6, b5, bishop a3, and a4, bishop takes b4. So it starts to become kind of irritating to get these things going. Computer recommends queen d3. So if he just goes like queen e6. Oh, right. Yeah, okay. I did look at queen d3, and I didn't see what it did after just some straightforward move, but deflecting the queen away from b4 is pretty clever. So that's probably more clear. I just decided to wait because he doesn't have very many constructive moves. And I saw that g5 was not possible because of takes here and then check, and I pick up the bishop, which is nice. A slick little tactic. So again, he just has to wait. And f4, I don't think he played it because I can just simply take and then here. This should also be pretty easily winning. So he makes an improving move. He just protects the pawn, so now he can go f4. Take that check. Ooh, queen c8. Bishop d6. Oh. He just loses everything. I did not see that. Queen c8. Forcing him to lose everything. Oh, man. Brutal. Brutal. Yeah, I mean, this is something I know I need to work on. My coach says I need to work on. I'm pretty good at understanding positional play, I think, and slowly improving my position and restricting my opponent's counterplay. Like, you know, and my opening preparation is pretty good. So a lot of times I have these games where like I go out of the opening into an advantageous position and I get to improve, and I just take away my opponent's chances, and I build up easily winning positions relatively easily. Like in this game, I did not have to work particularly hard to build up a winning position. There were some critical moments where I may have found the move, I may have not found the best move, but I found reasonable ways to improve my position. Critical moment, bishop takes d5. I would say picking knight takes d5 and queen takes d5 was maybe important. Then there was this decision on move 15 of what kind of move I would play to consolidate my position. And all of the moves I played there were good. And without very many hiccups, I reached a completely winning position, just 2 pawns up with nothing. But I'm not very good at, when your position is good like this, generally there are like tactics and there are ways to convert your positional advantage into something more tangible, like material or mating attack, whatever. And I'm not good at finding those like forcing solutions once my position is superior. And I need to be able to do that. Like I missed queen c8 over and over and over again. And even here, even worse, I missed queen a3 was possible, which is like horrendous. So now he takes, and I think I should play queen check here first, with the idea of going here and then taking here. And yeah, I hung a pawn. I'm only up 1 pawn now. But I keep a3, b4 intact. My knight is still unassailable on d5. And his 2 pawns on the king side aren't going to do anything. If he goes g5 and tries to get him going, I can just leave it, which is pretty hilarious, and just go a4. But any sane person, I think, would take. And I would imagine I'm still winning. It actually is almost fairly critical that I leave it, because I lose a pawn, but I win a bunch of moves. Because in the second h pawn is pretty redundant. Yeah, and then he can't go into g4 because of this check. Ooh, that is filthy. Yeah, and right after I played this line, right after I played f takes g3 quickly, I saw that I should just play queen e3. Yeah, that's a bummer. But in general, I should just protect a3 somehow, or just go a4 and get these things going. That was incredibly bad. And going into this, I'm not even certain that it's winning anymore. I think g5 was just pretty obvious and important. I have to leave it. If I take here, he just gets to go h4, and I think this is very easily probably drawn. So after g5, I have to play b5. Maybe I'm still winning because his king is so bad. But it basically comes down to whether or not the ending with the extra knight is, like, let's say king f5. Yeah, king here. Yeah, and the problem is if he takes and let's say just puts his king on a square. Okay, that's even worse because, yeah, let's say here. Not allowing king g4, king f5. This is presumably just winning if I win the bishop, because eventually I just run him out of the critical squares. Like if he just tries to hang around. Yeah, okay, I mean. And this is, yeah, okay, this is stupid. He can't keep his king on h8? I don't think so. Ah, yeah, so knight e5 and here, and he has to go to f8, and then I go h6. Okay, so all this is stupid. So b5, and I'm winning. We'll just leave it at that. But it's good to confirm that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, we would have heard of the double h-pawn draw with being up a knight. You know, it would be a very famous endgame, and no one has ever heard of that, so I assumed it was winning, but it's good to confirm that it's winning and move on. And probably actually all of this is winning. in exactly the same fashion. He just can't stop me from queening. He can't save the knight, and he's way too far away to trade some pawns. Okay, yeah, and I'll leave it at that. Okay, another successful reverse Grünfeld. I almost feel bad posting this. It's like maybe just in my head, I think like half my games are reverse Grünfelds or something. It didn't used to be this way, but for whatever reason, I start recording and people only want to play d5 and c5. But okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, I would appreciate your